So I just saw this piece in the Daily Mail that claims Gen Z is bringing back marriage and also beating the odds of the divorce rates that we have seen for the past several decades. They have stronger marriages than baby boomers ever did, according to the numbers. It says, after decades of decline, the traditional American family is mounting an unexpected comeback. Once dismissed as a relic of the 1950s, the married with children model is suddenly back in fashion in homes, on screens, and in the hearts of a new generation of Americans. The data backs it up. Divorce is down, and the share of children in two-parent families is up. Marriage as a social institution is showing new strength. According to new research from the Institute for Family Studies, after decades of plummeting marriage rates, surging divorces, and a boom in single-parent households, the tide may finally be turning. The divorce rates have dropped to a 50-year low. This is something that we were talking about yesterday, because I didn't know.
Tate brought it up.
Yeah, Tate brought up that divorce rates are at an all-time low, and I didn't know about this until then.
An all-time low?
Well, since no-fault divorce was introduced, yeah.
Right.
The share of American children growing up in stable married households has ticked upward for the first time in decades. The evidence is everywhere. They say there are several Hollywood couples that have taken part in this larger sociological trend. First off, they listed Millie Bobby Brown, who got married at an age that was deemed too young, 21. Yeah, to Jake Bon Jovi. And
I have to ask again, do you think they played Bon Jovi at the wedding? I'm
Probably.
bringing this up because we're talking with the DJ right now, and one of the things they ask you, like, hard out, what are some songs that are like a no-go, it will ruin your wedding? And I'm guessing that Wanted Dead or Alive was on that list for him. He's like, look, I listened to my dad play it for decades. I don't want any of that shit played at my wedding.
And then they say Millie Bobby Brown said she had frank conversations with Jake Bon Jovi prior to getting married about their political views, their home life, and plans for children before tying the knot. We talked about the kind of family we wanted to build and the kind of relationship that we were looking for. Now, I don't think they should have listed Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively here as an example.
Well, I mean, they're not Gen Z, so
they're not. But
why did they list them?
They're seen as one Hollywood couple that has beaten the odds and stayed together. That's not super common in their industry or their space. I understand that, but they are crazy. Maybe they're just the perfect kind of crazy for each other.
Yeah.
He also listed Chris Pratt and Katherine Schwarzenegger, and also influencer couples have a huge hand in this. They didn't list Nara Smith and her husband Lucky Bluesmith, but they have a huge following as well and post about their family life. We have a 20 from No Control. It seems to me this is the effect of conservatives having more kids. The severe decline of leftists having kids is starting to show, with Gen Z being more conservative, not due to vibe shift, but just basic demographics. Well, I think the argument they presented for why this is taking a drastic turn with Gen Z and younger millennials is actually because people are more averse to getting married now. Ironically, that is creating longer lasting marriages because people are less likely to get married in the first place.
Yeah.
They say at the heart of this quiet revolution are millennial and Gen Z couples who are often more intentional about their unions, frequently better educated, and more often open to traditional values than many would expect. So basically, Gen Z is so risk averse and so unlikely, for the most part, to get married or start families that when they do, that already makes them statistical anomalies, and they're going to be far more prepared and far more discerning about how they go about it.
Perhaps they're getting rid of the idea that that millennials had of the starter marriage.
Yeah, for sure.
Or was that Gen X? You know, that was previous generations talking about the idea of a starter marriage, which treats it with a frivolousness, a blasé attitude that doesn't really lend itself to success.
It's disgusting, but it's true.
This might be like Gen Z's anxiety working in their favor for once. It's a remarkable shift from gloomy predictions of just a few years ago. Back in 2019, 88% of Americans said they believed divorce was on the rise, while surveys as recent as 2023 found many were pessimistic about the future of marriage as an institution. And they say that the data is not in step with those perceptions. More than half of baby boomer marriages ended in divorce, but only around 40% of today's newlyweds are projected to split. And I think they can say projected because they're reaching those shorter milestones still married. And the longer a couple is married, the less likely they are to divorce later on down the line. The institution has become more selective, and I think that's a good thing. Like, I don't think people should have this idea that they need to be fully formed, perfected human beings who have self-actualized in every imaginable facet of their life before getting married.
Well, is that more of a female concept? Men, it's about whether they're financially able to support a family, and women, it's about some vague
Self-discovery
sense
or
of
something?
self-discovery and self-actualization.
Yeah, but I think it does present in both sexes for sure. And that has been one of the main reasons why marriage is still not not as common as it used to be. But maybe the upside to that, the silver lining in that, is that the people who do get married actually care about what it means.
Yeah.
You know?
Well, I mean, back in the day, it felt like people didn't put a whole lot of thought into it other than the idea that society told them they should, like college.
Yeah.
Like, they just did it because their parents and their guidance counselors at school told them, go to college because that's what you need to do to have a good life. And similarly, they were looking at marriage kind of in the same way. Well, what do you do when you become an adult? You go to college, you get a job, and you get married without putting a lot of thought into what that actually means. And there was probably a certain amount of... That was at, like, the height of the growth in secularism in this country as religion started to fade in this, in the 90s, in the early 2000s.
Like, marriage isn't seen as the default
The late 90s
anymore.
Yes, exactly.
Even though most people do still get married and have kids, it's still not seen as the default, and it's not seen as a milestone that you have to reach, or at least not one that you have to reach by a certain age anymore. This report also shows that the number of children born outside of marriage, once rising steadily since the 1960s, has stopped climbing. Hello.
Oh, it's doing it again.
The rate of children born outside of marriage peaked in 2009 at 41%, but now sits just below 40%. So it's not that the number of children out of wedlock is dramatically declining, but it stopped rising.
Yeah.
And the number of children raised in intact biological married families has risen from 51% in 2014 to 54% in 2024, according to federal data. The conclusions drawn that these reversals mean marriage is back as a cornerstone of American family life. Stable marriage is increasingly the way that most men and women are raising children. While social critics once predicted that cohabitation, single parenting, or chosen families would replace marriage, those trends have plateaued. The so-called family revolution sparked in the 1960s is running out of steam. Marriage isn't dead yet. It looks like we are having a marriage renaissance.
I think part of it might be, if we're to keep this in the realm of pop culture, if you think about what movies were doing in the 90s and the early 2000s, which was to show you the mundane and oftentimes downsides of marriage, or even the dark side if you think of something like American Beauty. And there was this hyper focus at the time to kind of demonize the idea of living in the suburbs, of having a stable family where everyone's together because everybody has deeper desires that they have no ability to repress. And then it eventually leads to the destruction of everything around you. And I think a lot of that is because the people who choose to go work for Hollywood, the people who choose to go write in Hollywood, tend to be the type of person who feels like they escape the suburbs.
The demonization of the suburbs is such a ridiculous idea because the suburbs are awesome.
They are.
Right?
I love the suburbs.
The reason why I think the majority of Americans live in the suburbs is because it's an extremely comfortable, extremely welcoming type of lifestyle, right? You have your own area and your house and your, maybe however much property you have, a quarter acre or an eighth of an acre, whatever it is, but you've got your own house, but it's not so far away from your neighbors and other things where it's inconvenient to go to the store and stuff. Like, the suburbs are awesome, and so all that hate on the suburbs, I never understood it.
Every show on TV would show people from the city have to go spend a day in the suburbs, and the people are fake and inauthentic, and awful things are happening behind the scenes, and it was always done as a way to demonize.
Nobody gets mugged in the suburbs. Like, there's never a homeless man peeing on your stoop.
Yeah.
Right.
And if there is, you call the cops and they come pick his crazy ass up.
Right.
Right. Like if you call the cops in the city, you're like, hey, there's a homeless man out there. They're like, yeah, we know.
And most
call
of
someone
my-
who gives a shit. Hang up on you.
Most of my friends that lived in the city would try to get me to move there, and I'm like, I don't want to.
I don't want to.
I like where I live, and I wasn't even at that time. I grew up in the suburbs, but I didn't live there after after high school. I moved to my mom did, but like where I was living in the before I moved out here was like half suburb, half city, meaning like in West St. Paul, Minnesota, there's Robert Street. And on the far side of Robert Street is all kind of suburbs. And where I was, if you went any farther down, you were in the city. But if you went over south, you were in by the high school, which was all a suburb. And then it got more expensive down the way. I was just on the edge of the city, right? But, it was nicer over here. It was better kept over here than it was down here. Now, that's not me to make some type of commentary on the people there. There was plenty of people there that I'm sure were great people who they were like me. They couldn't afford to live in the suburbs at that point. But you knew that that's where they wanted to send their kids to school. They
Yeah.
didn't want their kids to go to school farther down the street. They wanted them to go up in the suburbs.
Right. It's a mixed bag, as always. I don't think that we can look at these stats and purely interpret it as a white pill, like Gen Z is super trad and they love the idea of, the 1950s Americana aesthetic. Like that's not really what's happening. What's happening is a natural consequence of Gen Z being disincentivized in every way to get married and have kids. The ones who do are going to be in the minority. And that means that they're probably going to be more thoughtful and intentional and deliberate about the way that they do it. That's why I have higher hopes for the way Gen Z is going to parent their children.
Yeah.
Because they're not going to take having children as a given in their lives.
Yeah.
So if you do have kids as a Gen Z parent, you're very adamant about doing it what you perceive to be the right way. I think there's a huge pushback on Gen Z raising iPad babies. They're not going to be doing that as much as millennials or prior generations did.
The hope would be that they learn the lesson that the millennials weren't able to learn because they didn't understand the technology as it came through.
Yeah.
Maybe what I'll do one day is I'll make a list of all of the TV shows that, kind of tried to run propaganda against the suburbs. There's a lot of them.
I also wanted to mention, just in a similar vein, a new interview that Margaret Qualley gave to Cosmopolitan, talking about her marriage to Jack Antonoff. He's this huge music producer. She says that she has very old-fashioned approaches to romance. And
yes, women always want to be able to dress like this and then talk about being old-fashioned.
she says
I'm just
she
saying.
followed Southern girl etiquette while dating her husband.
Is this Southern girl etiquette? I'm curious.
Yeah,
Does that mean didn't have oral sex with him on the way to the first date?
Is anything in the substance what we'd consider
I'm
old-fashioned?
traditional.
Yeah.
She said, I'm very old school about stuff like this. I would never put myself out there first. I never text twice. I mean, now we're married and I can text him anything, anytime. We're always having a conversation. But before we were together at the beginning, I would always follow Southern girl etiquette. And she says Jack Antonoff said, I love you first. Obviously.
I have a question. What does she mean by I never text twice? Like I texted once, he didn't respond, so I text again?
Which
Yeah.
that is some
Okay.
BS game stuff.
Well,
Yeah,
apparently it worked out. I don't know.
not saying I love you first, fine. But never texting twice?
It seems to have worked in their relationship.
Like the type of thing that ends up just becoming a brain worm that eats away at you with self-doubt.
Well, I think that she's more so trying to communicate she didn't take the role of pursuing in their dating stage.
Let's hope that that's what that means.
I think that's what she was trying to communicate, is that she wasn't like chasing after him.
Well, now they're married, so hopefully he produces lots of music about her.
Thanks for watching. Listen to full episodes of Pop Culture Crisis on Spotify.
Keep up with us on social media and make sure you subscribe and ring that bell so you never miss the show. Bye, guys.